Up, YouTube? It's Joe Catpolia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online as usual. Today we have a new property from Mogul. It actually came out, I think, 2 days ago is when I got the email on this, but there's just been a lot of stuff going on. Just now got to it. Um, I think that there's been a couple members in our Discord that shared some nice due diligence on it. It's another, 6 bedroom, six full bath, which I really like that beds and bath ratio pad split in downtown Atlanta. Um, they gave us the general info yield, year one yield, 11%. Actually, I think it's 10.99 on the sheet right now. I know that's a rounding error, but who cares? I'm nitpicky sometimes, and I want to tell you about it. Right? These guys don't make a lot of mistakes, so I like to share them when I see them. So, one thing, if you did see this, they talk about $45,000 of seller paid improvements plus 10K in closing credit. When you look at the contract, it actually looks like it's 35,000 plus 10K, so a total of 45,000 spent. Um, and I think they did correct that on the listing page. I think I mentioned this already. They had a couple little errors recently, but they're so quick to fix it. It's like you just can't even be mad about it, right? Like, they verify right away. Oh yeah, this is something we didn't do right. They fix it, move on. And I think that just says a lot about how they're running things, right? I mean, you're always going to have some issues like this. Um, and how you address them, I think, is just much more important than whether or not you have some of them or not. But yeah, again, some mid-teens IRR, 2.5x multiple on invested equity, like all the things that we're used to seeing from them. Um, it starts to get like, you just expect them to put out deals like this, but I just want to remind you, like those are fantastic numbers. At least for me, I'm very excited to see a property like that. It's not easy to find deals like this, and so let's see. And this is a one I think is really interesting because they didn't find this deal; they're making this deal, and I want to explain what I'm talking about. So, okay, again, 6 bedrooms, six full baths. So this is what they're doing here, and I'll show you the contract. They have the property under contract. It's the most current list price is like, yeah, 449. They have it under contract for 500,000, but they've asked the seller to spend $35,000 on repairs. I read they're going to do like a roof, some cosmetic stuff, maybe the furnace. I don't remember. But, they have a list of things that they want to get done. They're going to do a second appraisal before that's done, and as long as it hits the new value, then they'll close at the contract price. They're basically doing a value add deal, during the escrow. And I know, sometimes you do an inspection and you find a bunch of stuff and you get them, to fix things or give you credits. But this is a little bit more than that because, they went into this deal asking for these things. And some of the things it sounds like are just cosmetic, right? So they're really just trying to improve the property. Um, I really like that. I think that they're getting a little creative. It makes it so, there is a little bit more business plan risk here, but they take some of that off the table because, well, if they don't, if it doesn't meet the new appraisal, well, then you're not having to close on it. Um, they do have current residents. It's currently 100% occupied, but they're saying you have to deliver it at least 60% occupied, so maybe two people move out in between. 6 units is not a whole bunch of units. The other thing, there was a couple of things about this. It had 1 year of 89,000 in gross revenue, and then last year was 64,000. They said there was a management transition, but they are projecting, yeah, 84,000. And oh, you know, and then they say that it is, let me see, how do they actually describe it? It's justified by the trailing 12 performance. So a lot of times you see them saying like this is below the last year's or below the, or they're estimating something that's below, and it doesn't seem like that's what they're saying, but they're saying it's justified. Like it's in the realm, and like where there was, oh, I'm jumping to the wrong page already. Where there was already a better year than that, but then you have a worse year. Um, you never like to see that decline, but if the trailing, but this is 2024, right? We're already more than halfway through 2025. So they're saying that they're basing this number off of what the trailing 12 is. So, half of this year, half of last year. So far, they've always been seem to be really conservative with where they're estimating their yields. At least on the properties I've bought so far, they've been hitting their yield numbers that I expected. Sometimes, sometimes overperforming or outperforming by a decent amount. Um, so I'm pretty okay with that. So this is in Atlanta. Normally I dig into the market, but I've done that quite a few times because they have a lot of properties in Atlanta. I think it's the least bedrooms we've seen in a pad split, and it is the most dollars per bedroom in rent. Because 84,000, that's a lot of, we've seen that in eight or more bedrooms, right? And so this is the actual pad split listing, I believe. I think this is the property itself, which there are no units available currently. Um, but so the closest units 314, 293. These, if you remember, a lot of these we've been seeing in like the high 100s, the mid 200s, and so it's a different part of town, and so it looks like they have higher rates. I'm sure where this unit also, wherever, there's a bathroom for every bedroom, that it's doing well from that perspective. I also just looked at the map view. So we're talking about being right around here. Um, so you do have these two 293s that are nearby. Uh, but you have some cheaper ones too, right? So, you have to believe that we're just more like these ones than those ones. But with the uh, history, I think that that's probably accurate. If I'm going to put a bunch of money into this, maybe I spend more time really digging into these. But honestly, for me, I've come to trust these guys quite a bit on their projections. I think, although I've disagreed a lot on some of the valuations they've had, I've very rarely, had real question about the yields, and they've seemed to, been pretty conservative with those, and so I've been happy about that. So I'm not digging into that further, but something that maybe you'd want to, depending on how much you're putting into this property. Um, it's a good time to stop and say, please like and subscribe. In the description to this video, I have links to all the sites I'm currently invested in fractional real estate online. And actually, that's a lie because I didn't put a link to Arrived on there yet, and I did buy one Arrived home yesterday. Um, and I also, in the description of this video, oh yeah, if you're going to invest on any of those sites, please do your own due diligence on the sites and on the properties. And also in the description to this video, there's a link to the Discord that I mentioned earlier, where a bunch of us just talk about fractional real estate investing on all sorts of platforms. Mogul is one of them, and it's really been great to see it's taking a life of its own now. I'm not involved in every conversation. I get to talk to a lot of you, but a lot of people are just talking amongst themselves about different deals and different platforms. I think there's a lot of smart people on there, people that are sharing, interesting facts about this. This one, I actually heard of this before I saw it in my email. Somebody posted it in the Discord, and so there's a lot of that going on. Please feel free to join that. Okay, so back to what we're doing, yeah, I was just mentioning, you might want to do your own due diligence on, what's the difference between these 290s and 300s and these 185s? Is it that much different part of town? Or these are just like, really inferior units? What's going on there? But again, I did not do that for this video because, I actually like what they're doing here. And I think that it's going to be hard to find one bed, one bath comps where, excuse me, the whole property is all that. So, I find that to be a pretty credible assumption, right? That they're going to do that, that they're going to hit that 84,000, especially when they do have a year that they've done that in the past. And I think a good explanation for why they had a down year. It is, if it's a higher dollar per room and less rooms, you're going to have chunkier changes to your occupancy or vacancy. One room being vacant is going to have a bigger impact. It's something to keep in mind, but I think that over the long run, holding the property is not that big a deal. Um, just like always, they are projecting a refinance. I think I've only bought maybe one or two properties where they didn't, but it's 5 years out. They do it at 5% interest. They're not making any crazy assumptions, and I always like to toggle that off and see how much it changes. And this deal, Okay, it went to 14.4. And what was it before that? Let's put that back on. I don't think it's going to change it a whole bunch. It was 15, yeah, 15 and a half. So it doesn't make a big difference. Again, they put this average yield here. You guys know I hate that number. I wish they would just put year one IRR. I mean, those are the two things I'm always looking for. I always have to scroll down to find the year one. Or, I mean, they do put it in their email, so it's not a big deal. Um, yeah, so their numbers. I mean, the way they present them, they're always relatively straightforward. The big thing that I always want to check, you know, confirm their property tax amount, confirm the rental income. Obviously go through these numbers, but it is, there's I just haven't found a lot of fault in them. So it's, I don't want to say, I always want to still check them, but over time I'm going through their deals much quicker than I have in the past. Um, and if we start to get some hiccups along the way, that might change again, and I'll start to be a bit more careful. But I think doing some of this, kind of standard due diligence. I didn't do a whole bunch on the value on this property, and I think it's going to be really tough because they're doing two appraisals. It's really hard to imagine. They're going to do an as-is appraisal and then an appraisal after the work is done. It's really hard to imagine. Um, that the work I do on, or looking at his estimates or anything is going to be more accurate than that. I mean, yeah, right now it says 44,000. Okay, obviously we're paying a decent amount more than that, but you're also getting $45,000 in credits. And you're getting someone to do that work for you, right? And I think that there's a lot of value in not having to put our own capital at risk for that, not having to own it during that time period. So, pretty comfortable with that. Again, though, do your own due diligence, and just because I am doesn't mean you have to take my word for that. Um, this is, I was just looking at it on the map. It is probably one of the most central ones they've had in Atlanta. They had ones in some of the suburbs and then in the city, but not like really close to downtown. I think there was actually one, maybe I don't remember, somewhere else downtown, but a different location. Uh, so a couple of things. One, there are, several close buses, which is, obviously one of the things I'm always looking for. A lot of the people that use pad splits like to use the bus system. It seems like this is one of the things. It seems like there's plenty of parking because this is a corner. One, that's something that we're always concerned about, right? Is like whether that's the case or not. Now I'm dragging this down, even though I have a second tab open for it. So let's see. So you have a driveway, but then you have this corner where there's street parking over here. But now it looks like so there is this construction project going on here, and when we were up above, it looks like this might end up being like that they can enter here, but maybe up front too from that other picture. Whether or not that impacts the ability to park on this street is something that I'm hoping we're looking into. I'm not sure that you're going to get a definitive answer on that. But if it were a problem, I mean, you definitely have space to put extra parking here as well, right? And so I'm not terribly concerned about this, but it is something to just think about because so it looks like these are going to be new townhomes. That's something in our Discord. Somebody had posted some more pictures on that. Um, but I think then when we were just down here, you can see, that there was already construction started, and this is April 2025. So it seems to me it's probably further along than that. I'd love to be able to see, what's actually happening with this property. Yeah, but see, they've got a curb cut here, and so it does look like you're going to be able to drive in the back and there. Um, there's no street parking on this street, so it is, you're limited to this driveway, and then, obviously they are using this street parking right here. So is there going to be a problem with parking? I think there's some potential for it um, when you start to have a lot more cars parked back there. But I think that, with that new construction, um, it looks like they actually put a lot of, this all looks like they put parking here, right? And this is where those properties are going to be, I think. And maybe they'll build here and here. I'm not certain on those plans. Again, something like, if you're really concerned about, it's something we could look into more. Um, But that's what it looks like to me, just looking at that. So, you know, parking is all, often something I worry about. Again, this is only six, it's only 6 units, and we are close to the bus line, and we do have a driveway, and there is street parking on this street. So like all those things are going for us. Just because there's going to be some new units added in the area makes me, wonder about it a little bit. But I'm not terribly concerned. You can probably tell, in general, I'm pretty interested in this one. I think there is some new risk, and there are the pictures of this property. Oh, I think it's actually in the listing. There's the condition of certain things is not great. Is this it? Um, but I love that they're actually getting a lot of it just taken care of before they close, and that they even, and that it was identified and that this stuff is happening like it's just part of the plan from the very beginning. I mean, I think it's a smart way to go about this. I don't see people do it a whole bunch. Um, and so, I think I'd like to be a part of this one because of that, right? I think like it just makes it, I just like the idea of being part of that value add deal. Like it makes it a more believable. Sometimes when we're buying this in place income, I mean, it has been what I've expected on all of them. But sometimes it's hard to understand. Like, how are we just getting? Why are other people passing that up? Right here, they didn't just find this deal; they created a deal. Right? A lot of people passed on this. Oh, the property's not in great shape, and they said, well, you know what, Mister Seller, why don't you fix this for us? Then we'll pay you even more than you're asking, and then so I think it's a good business model, um, and I like that it's six one bedroom one bath, right? Like there's a bedroom for every unit. I think you tend to get longer stays. I like that it's a higher dollar amount per unit. Um, I'd love it if it were 10 units or 10 bedrooms instead of six, but I think that part of the reason that they are getting the higher dollar amount is it's not 10 units, right? So I think there's a lot to like about it from that perspective. Uh, Obviously, I checked the flood map as usual. Did not see any issues with that. That's always, a no go for me, or very often a no go, I have to say now because I bought some. I was looking at the spot crime map, and this did not take a whole lot of time. It was, only a few days to generate this many, or I guess actually about a week to generate this many. But this is one of the cleanest spot crime maps we've seen in Atlanta. Um, if you really zoom in, like these are all relatively, they're a little bit further away, and especially, so you've seen some of these where just like all of the crime, they could fill a very small area. Here they had to be pretty spread out, and it was over a week's time. So I thought this was pretty promising relative to some of the other ones. And just most of the time when you're in bigger cities, a lot of it, I'm not just picking on Atlanta, a lot of the properties we looked at in Houston and elsewhere, you're just going to have these spot crime maps where you just have a large density much closer. And so I thought this was a really good sign. There's really nothing right there. What is this one? Other. I didn't even click on this other. Loitering, vagrancy, curfew violations, crime against society and premises. That's so interesting. So like, I mean, I think that's a good sign, right? Like there's the way that is. So I liked that a lot. Um, let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to talk to you about this. Uh, already went into the pad split numbers, and like, yeah, again, like, oh, I don't think I did the math on it, right? I know I did it, but I don't think since I turned this on. So you're at 293 times six times 52 is 91,000, right? And so they're saying 84,000 divided by 84, um, 1 over xing that. So, predicting like 90, almost 92% occupancy, if this 293 is the right number, maybe they're doing 300 even, maybe, but like this isn't a huge vacancy number. Um, because if you have 1 out of 6 missing at any, you know, you've already got 17% vacancy, but you figure they're planning to stay pretty full the whole time to hit that top line number. Um, But again, it's only 6 units they have to keep full. There's a bathroom per bedroom. Um, it's in an area that's the lower. Like I think for all these reasons, it makes sense that that's this premium. It is just it took me a little while to get my head around the higher price because we have seen a lot that are in this price range, and I honestly don't. It's a little bit tougher to understand like why. This one only has one room left. Let's look at it. Let's take um, okay, underwhelming shared kitchen there. What's our kitchen look like? Eh, not a whole lot different, right? But a little bit different. Don't we have? I thought I had another kitchen picture somewhere. Um, let's see. Oh, that's the wrong one. This is the one. But this is, let's see, is it a private bedroom, shared common spaces? So this does not come with your own bathroom. Um, let's look what else. What is that the biggest thing? I mean, it is interesting because this is not that far away. Um, and it doesn't look too much different, right? So I wonder what's going on here. Whenever you have a big discrepancy like that in a small area, I mean, my guess is the neighborhood is going to change a decent amount from here to here. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Let's zoom out on the spot crime map and see. Uh, okay, well, let's, uh, can I do this area here, right? Let's look. This is one of the things I do when I just have too much time on my hands. Okay, MLK Drive. Where is that? Is that this? That doesn't look like that's that. What are we doing here? Oh, that's right here. Oh, so it's really close. That's really close. Sometimes the different maps are not, not to the same scale, obviously. Um, yeah, so, I mean, nothing here, but we got these. I mean, maybe it really does change that much in that short distance. Um, Sometimes that'll be the case. It'll be interesting. It might be a question to ask them, like, what's going on here? How are we? I mean, obviously this one looks a lot different, right? Like these 293s, this property, the common area looks pretty nice here. Um, what are these? Are these uh, bathroom? But I mean, these are shared baths. I think that is going to make a big difference. I don't know. Obviously it piqued my curiosity a little bit when I look back at this. Whenever I don't have a lot to complain about on a property, I get kind of worried, right? One, I don't want to get too complacent. Um, just because I've been happy with my other mogul investments, I want to still be careful with all my due diligence. Uh, and figure out, oh, and actually this bus stop is even closer than I thought. I had just noticed the one up a little further. I mean, that is just like really nice. What do we got here? I had walked around this a little bit, not actually walked around, but used this. I mean, it is, you know, it's not the nicest neighborhood. You do have a lot of properties that are dilapidated or need some work, but you obviously also have some brand new construction coming in here. So there's reinvestment in the area. There is a lot of graffiti or signs of graffiti that have been cleaned up. I mean, that wasn't cleaned up very well. Oh, where'd we go? There was one other place where I saw that. Um, yeah, here too, right? You've got graffiti there. You know, I think that everywhere that we've looked except for like when you get out into like Decatur and stuff, like you just have some of that, and I guess people just learn to live with it. Um, it's one of the things, if we were doing a short-term rental right here, I'd be much more worried about this, right? Because you're going to have guests that are going to be really uncomfortable about this and complain about it. The pad split, clientele, I think is going to be a little bit less picky about that. Um, It's going to be okay, nice. It's close to a bus stop. The crime map does look pretty good compared to a lot of other crime maps we looked at near these. Um, so, I'm depending on what the business plan is, I'm looking at the property with a little bit of a different lens. So, I mean, you might have seen me look at some other ones and been like, oh, look at all the graffiti near here. I'm not really interested in this one. That's definitely been the case with some of the short-term rentals I've looked at. Um, but where this one has been performing, it is it meets a lot of the criteria as far as proximity to the bus stop, parking, has the real strong beds and bath ratio, which the last one I passed up. The reason I didn't want to buy it was because of it was like it was really stretching the limits. And I have bought some 8 bed, 2 baths, but I'd much rather have a little bit more. I do think it makes a difference in the length of stay for some of them. Yeah, this looks like either a new rehab or maybe new construction made to look like an older property. I'm just coming down this way because this is the direction for the more expensive ones. Obviously, a lot of these properties look nicer, although that one looks a lot like ours. Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting. If you're, I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick up a piece of this. I'll probably do a little bit more digging on my own. If you've dug into this one and you've spotted other issues that I didn't mention, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to put it in the comments to this video or jump in the Discord and talk about it there. There's already a couple people looking into it, so the more that we can work together on this stuff, the better. And I think that I'm really excited that there's more and more of that happening on a regular basis. So please keep that up. Um, I think that's everything. Did you do the little bell? If you didn't do the bell, you should probably do the bell and like and subscribe. And I say that every time, but I have like way more of you watch videos than are actually subscribed, and I'm not sure why that is. YouTube tells me that I should have more subscribers for how many viewers I have. So if it's because I'm not better looking, I apologize. At this point in my life, probably not going to change that. Uh, I know that I have a lot of ahs and ums. Do I need to edit those out? Let me know if it gets to the point where it's so annoying I need to find someone to edit that out. Apparently, that's a possibility. I just haven't done that. And I think that's everything. So until next time, I'm going to just keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.